Have you come to this video thinking, how do I make this a Cardi graphic? Well, if you stay for the full duration of the video and unlock the 4 letters, you'll be able to use the PSD in no time. Without further ado, let's jump straight into designing this graphic. As you can see, I already have a preset composition, and these 3 images are from Footy Renders, which you can find the links below to these images. What I'm planning to do is a half split of orange and yellow from the 2 colors from Galatasaray, add some text in and add some textures in over the top. So now let's jump into our composition. For my first step, what I'm going to do is make a layer beneath Icardi, the 3 Icardis, and we're going to find the middle. So we're going to get our ruler tool and place that in the middle. We're going to have the maroon kind of brownish color on the left side, and then we will have our yellows on the right side. Now that we've done that, we will group those 2 together. And what we're going to do is we're going to group the 2 back and bigger Icardi images together and put a layer mask on them. We'll select our soft brush and have our color set to black and put the flow down to around 20%. Make the brush just a little bit bigger. And then we will shape and shade out the bottom. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to come into the actual layers. So what I've done here is I've gone into the layers themselves and added the layer mask and the shading and the fading onto the layers themselves, rather than putting the masking and the fade on the group. And we'll just continue to fix the mask up, just because we don't want the backing larger Icardi image and his kit to be visible behind the one we have here on the left that I've selected. Now what I'm going to do is, after I've done that, is I'm going to jump into the background and I'm going to convert both of these objects to a smart object. And I'm going to come to my packs, come to the Sil XD pack, just using a displacement map that you can make yourselves. And what I'm going to do, as you can see, is I've made a kind of grungy effect for the background, and I'm just going to duplicate the sizing of it. And then I'm going to duplicate it and then apply the same effect to the maroon background. So we're just going to drag the displacement onto the bottom, and we can see what that does. So what we'll do is we will just move over the maroon side of things. And because we want some maroon colors on the other side, I'm going to work out just how to do this myself. So I'll speed this process up. And there we go. Now we've got colors from both sides merging in on the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move them across like so. So we've got that line in the middle and everything looks middled. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come onto the Icardi images, come to filter and come to camera raw filter. We'll increase the exposure by 0.25. That texture all the way up, and a little bit of clarity burst and a tiny little bit of contrasting. We'll come straight into our color mixes, turn the greens down and the little bit of the oranges down for the hue, just because we want a bit more of the color coming in, but we've got to be careful not to change the colors of the reds. We'll come to our color lookup layer in our adjustment layers, and then change this to our 3 strip that we normally go with. And we're going to duplicate the camera raw filter and see how that looks on the other 3 layers. So we'll continue to duplicate that and do the same for the color lookups. What I'm going to do is I'm going to match the colors on this. So we'll come to our yellows and then change the saturation so it is matching what the other colors are looking like. So we want a bit more of that yellow coming in. And then I'm going to come into this layer as well, back into the camera raw filters, and we're going to get rid of the greens that are coming through. Turn them down on the hue, turn the aquas down, just so we're getting rid of those nasty colors that are coming through. Greens, aquas down, and we can just see the difference that makes in balancing the colors out. Then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a layer behind all 3 of the images, and I'm going to keep our flow on 20% and have the white brush selected. And we're just going to put in some highlights behind the Icardis, like so. And then we're going to come into the group and make a layer in between this Icardi and add some highlights behind the closest one, just so we'll have some separation behind them both, and I might even drop the flow up a little bit and increasing the flow of that, just so we're getting a bit more light coming in. And we'll do the same for this Akadi too. Like so, and we can see the difference that that makes, just adding something into the background and making everything look a lot nicer. What I'm going to do is just move the composition around slightly, just so we're having a little bit more of a break and gap between where the images are, and so they're a bit more split out through our composition. And as you can see, I need to adjust the mask a little bit, so I'll drop that flow back down to 20%, and we'll just quickly fix that up. So for my next step, I'm going to do our color correction process. We'll turn our flow back up to 100% and put our opacity on 40%. If you've already seen this process, you can just skip through because you already know what's going on. But if you haven't, make sure you stick through this part. What we're going to do is we'll draw over the lighter areas on the image, like so. Across the arms as well. We don't want to be forgetting the whole entire composition and area of this image. And then we'll switch to our shadows, knocking our flow down, our opacity down a little bit and drawing over the darker areas. Got a lot of green going on around the face, but I've already got rid of some hue on that, so there's nothing else I can really do in terms of trying to get rid of anything else. And we can just see the difference that that makes in terms of color correction. So now we'll move on to the two other images. Put it on overlay, call it W and B. And then keeping our opacity around 25%. We'll just increase the size of the brush and then decrease it a tiny little bit. And then again, not forgetting the entire aspect of the image, moving all around it, doing the arms, the face, the eyes, and any skin that's available. Now we'll change to our shadows and draw in our shadows as well. We don't want to give them a black eye, we just want to draw the shadows in. And again, we can see the difference that that makes. And we'll do the same for the final image, putting on an overlay, naming each layer W and B. So we'll start with our highlights, drawing in the areas that have lighter images and areas on the composition, like so. And now, because we've got a lot of shadow, we'll really accentuate that, but we're going to drop the opacity down again. And we can see the difference that that makes with that color correction. What I'm actually going to do is make the images just a little bit closer again, just because I don't like how actually wide they are and they feel a little bit too disconnected from each other. Select our soft brush, and then we're just going to draw around the sides and the top. Like so, and we might even just increase the opacity a tiny little bit. Now we'll come to the smaller Akadi layer, and then using our foot shadow brush, putting our flow back up to 100%, we'll draw the shadows in, like so. We'll create another clipping layer, turn our flow down to 20%, and then draw on the shadows, like so. And then we'll come back into where we've had this foot shadow stuff, keeping our flow on 20%. We'll just add some more shadow bits in, knock it up just a tiny little bit. For some finishing touches, I'm going to drag and drop some textures in, just some lighting to go around the sides, color corrections layer, and then some adjustment layers like so. And then we'll turn our logo back on. And what we'll do is we'll go back into our layers, make another layer, and with our soft brush and our flow on 20%, what we're going to do is we're going to draw some light onto the layers we have already done, like so, just because we've got a bit of extra light coming onto our graphic. So we're just going to do this process now. Now what we'll do is we're going to press Ctrl Shift Alt and E, but we'll hide the Galatasaray logo, convert it to a smart object, come up to Camera Raw Filter, increase our exposure by around 0.10%, a little bit of contrast and clarity, same with the texture, increase the sharpening, add a little bit of grain over it and a little bit of vignette, and then we will put our Galatasaray logo over the top. And there we go, that's how I made this Mario Kart graphic. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, subscribe, comment what you want to see next. Thank you for watching, see ya.